Whether you're looking to land your next promotion, make a career transition, or find the next best role for you, being a job candidate can be challenging.
And even sometimes isolating, but you don't have to do it alone.
I'm Karen Weeks, the CEO and Chief Career Coach of Shine at Work Coaching. I bring over 20 years of HR experience to the conversation, including as the Chief People Officer at Order Groove.
And I'm Dan Carr, a Shine at Work career coach with over a decade of recruiting experience, helping high-growth startups expand with top talent.
On this podcast, we will shine a light on your job search so you can land a role that lets you flex your strengths and progress your career in an environment you actually look forward to working in each day.
From creating a standout resume, to confidently negotiating your salary, to find your footing as a new manager, you can expect to hear actionable advice to help you shine your brightest in your role.
This is the Shine at Work podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Shine at Work podcast. Today is a very special day because I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but this is our 100th episode. Unreal.
Well, it's not our 100th episode.
Fair.
Let's be genuine and honest and authentic with our audience.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Since the world revolves around me, it is my 100th episode, and you are just lucky enough to be here for part of them.
That is more accurate. I like it.
Oh, well, it's funny because as we were preparing for this, I was thinking back, so much has changed. So I started it literally in the height of the pandemic because people just needed things to do. And because I am the person that I am, I say, let me do more work. Let me put more stuff out there. So while people were, Netflixing, I was starting a podcast because that makes sense.
You're so ridiculous.
I know. But the lovely side of me, so that's the ridiculous side of me. The lovely side of me started it because as I was starting to talk to more and more people about they were laid off, they didn't like how their company was handling the pandemic, their lives were just turning upside down, and they were trying to think about what they wanted to do next. They said, I want to make a change, but people don't really do that, or I'm too old to do that. I'm too far in my career. I don't have the right skills. And I just kept thinking, I know so many people who have made job changes. So the initial format of the podcast was I literally just had people on that I knew had made job changes so they could share their stories and how they did it and what they learned, hopefully just sort of inspiring people and giving them actionable things that they could do to make a job change. And then that obviously has evolved from there, but that's literally what it was, is I was just trying to get stories out there that might help people.
That's great. I love that. So just coming from a grassroots, really authentic place of just let's have some conversations, no real angle to it, is just generally where I find the best stuff to come from. So
absolutely. Awesome. Well, and I was editing it myself in GarageBand. So then I met Kristen over at Nava Studios, and thank God her team is on this now. And so they do all the amazing editing and marketing for it and everything. So huge shout out to them. We still use the theme music though that Braden, my husband, wrote in our apartment in Brooklyn. He's like, well, what kind of feel do you want? I was like, I don't know. I like the Indigo Girls. And he was like, great. And so he wrote me an Indigo Girls based theme song that we still use.
That's too funny.
The title has changed. The artwork has changed. Everything else has changed. So, but that's what this is all about, right? Change and evolution and doing the thing that feels right for you in the moment. And this podcast is just another example of that.
Beautiful thing.
So first of all, I can't even remember, and I don't even know what it feels like to not do this with you. So I do want to make a true call out, not that it's because the world revolves around me, but doing the last 2 seasons with you have been so special. And I think you add so much to the stories that we tell and the advice that we give. So thank you for saying yes and doing something that I know was maybe not on your bucket list to do a podcast. So thank you for doing it with me.
No, I mean, thank you for inviting me and kicking and screaming to do it. I actually really enjoy it now, but this is way down on the list of things I thought I would be doing. So, but it's been a lot of fun, and I think we have some good conversations. So I love it.
Absolutely. No, I do as well. And what we wanted to use for the special 100th episode was do a little bit of a flashback. This is not going to be like one of those obnoxious montage 80s shows where like they got to the end of the season and didn't have any stories to do anymore, so they would just do a montage episode. It won't be that bad, I promise.
That would be a great opportunity for Bray to write a montage song, though.
There we go.
We may want to reconsider that, but
It's true.
let's move forward.
We'll do that for 250. We'll do a montage episode.
All right. I like it.
But what we did do was we asked our past guests to rejoin us and share advice that they would give. So throughout this episode, you're going to hear from them. Either they wrote things in, they left an audio message, or they actually recorded a video. So throughout this episode, you're going to see some familiar faces come back into the conversation. But one of the questions we asked them was, what do you wish you knew in your career that you know now? And not surprisingly, we saw themes come through, right? So we saw things around your career does not define you. It's a journey. So just sort of go along with the flow. You never know what's ahead of you. Celebrate the milestones when you have them. And then one of the other things, which I know we've talked about on this podcast before, is around how personal values need to align with company values. And if they don't, that might be why you're feeling a little stuck. In addition to those, there were two themes that came through that really hit for Dan and I that we wanted to kind of go deeper on and share some more thoughts on. So one is around nobody has all the answers. Everyone's an imposter. Everybody's just trying to figure shit out as they go. And Dan, that one resonated for you. Would you like to share more about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome is just a theme or a thread that I've either personally felt or colleagues have talked to me about, or friends that have gotten new positions at companies, and everybody just feels like everybody's always a little behind the 8 ball in whatever role that they're in, and they feel like they're sort of faking it before they make it, and it's just kind of par for the course. I mean, even being internal and hiring people or promoting people, you're always about 75% there. Maybe you have a better number than that, but there's always a stretch to it. And that's okay. And everybody's feeling it the same way in some capacity in their role. Is they're really good at these things because that was sort of the core of their previous role, but now they're stretching into something new. And they feel apprehensive about calling themselves an expert or acting in an expert way in some of those capacities, but it's very normal. It's the admission for the ride as far as like sort of growing through your career, and it's good to really be stretching into new things, and don't beat yourself up about it, because I think the biggest learning lesson is just everybody's going through it at all levels, from leaders to people that are junior in their career. And it's really just something that it's more of the growing phase, and be comfortable with it, embrace it, is I think probably one of the biggest things I've learned, and why I've just heard it from so many different people, surprising conversations too, of people that I wouldn't expect, and you're like, oh, that person's got their shit together, but they're feeling it too in some capacity, and it's all across the board. And I would just say lean into it, embrace it, and it's part of the game.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, I have both felt it in the sense of like, why am I in this room? Am I really allowed to be here? To, oh, I literally don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and we're just going to wing it and see what happens. I mean, to be honest, that's how this podcast started. I didn't know what I was doing. I literally Googled, like, can I record in Zoom? I have Apple. Do I use GarageBand? Like, who knows, like, what I was doing and which microphone should I use? So it's okay to not know what you're doing. It's about taking that leap and learning and figuring it out along the way, and being okay and saying, I don't know. So one of our guests that shared this point really shared that it's also okay just to ask, like, ask around, you're a really smart person. What do you think about this? Or, you might have gone through this. What do you think? I was talking to a new manager yesterday, and he's been in the role for about a year. And he said, I think maybe I'm starting to sort of get to this place that I'm a good manager. And he's like, but that's maybe giving me a lot of credit. And I'm like, yeah, you've only been doing it for a year. A
Mm,
lot of being a manager is pattern recognition, or I've seen this before, so I might know what to do in this moment. And that takes years to build. I get into conversations that take a left turn that I was not expecting. And I've been doing this a lot longer than a year. So
yeah.
everybody's trying to figure it out, to your point.
Hi, this is Aoife O'Brien from the Happier at Work podcast, coming to you from a warm and sunny Tenerife at the moment. And what can I say? What an absolute pleasure it was to be invited on the Shine at Work podcast. And I'm so thrilled to be able to contribute to episode 100 as well. And the question posed was, what advice or what do I wish I knew earlier in my career that I know now? And for me, the big thing is about values. So understanding what your own personal values are. I always understood the concept of company values or corporate values, but I never understood that I had my own values, and that when things weren't going well at work, it was likely because there was a mismatch of values or a clash of values somewhere along the way. And to explain that in a little bit more detail, to understand what your values are, can be when something bothers you a lot, when you feel like someone hasn't said what you would expect them to say or behaved in a way that you've expected them to behave. So that can be a way to understand what your values are. But to be able to truly understand what they are and find an organization that reflects those values so that people behave in a way that you would expect, I think that's something that's so important when it comes to work, and can prevent so many issues. And from a leader's perspective, hiring people for their values and teaching them the skills that they need can make it be a game changer in terms of retention and things like that.
Another theme that I've just seen is like being okay saying you don't know something and being
Yeah.
vulnerable. Like I can speak from personal experience, and some of my roles are earlier in my career where you feel like saying that or showing that is going to show a weakness, and it's going to just make you less valuable in someone else's eyes. But having had it played out and working in a lot of companies, some of the most successful people that I've seen in organizations just say, I don't know that, tell me more. Ask a lot of questions, um, and they usually are extremely well respected for that very reason. So I say don't do yourself a disservice of trying to pretend. Like, be open, honest, vulnerable, and it'll usually play to your advantage.
Yeah, and even to take that a step further, you actually gain a lot of trust if you say, "I don't know the answer, let me get back to you." You go off
Mhm.
and figure it out and then come back with the answer. That moment of vulnerability, humility, learning goes a long way with others to also make them realize that they don't need to know all the answers. So as long as you do the follow-up once you do figure it out, that goes a long way with the team.
If I could go back and give my younger self advice about career transitions, I would tell her a couple of things. The first is to keep your network warm and nurtured at all times, even if you're not actively job searching. I've seen this work for my clients and my colleagues who take good care of their people and are always pouring generously into their network, and it always comes around to serve them in the end. The second thing I would tell them is to be radically authentic in all interactions, whether you're networking, interviewing, or in the new job. When you try and present this perfectly polished version of yourself, you attract misaligned opportunities, and then you have to keep up that facade the entire time. So, this even starts in the interview. When somebody asks that opening question, tell me about yourself, don't ramble on for 4 minutes talking about all the things that are listed on your resume. Simply tell them who you are at your core, what you want to do, and why you think you're a good fit for this company. And then turn it around on them and say, I would like to hear what you need to learn about me to understand if this is a good fit for the role, and let the interviewer do most of the talking. Lastly, and this is especially for any women listening, go for that big opportunity. I always threw my hat in the ring for jobs that were bigger than what I had or what I was probably even qualified for. And I typically always got them because I had the cojones to throw my hat in the ring. So don't be afraid and don't sell yourself short.
So the sort of piece of advice that really resonated for me is it was described in two different ways, but either there's no wrong career choice, or making a decision, including not making a decision, is making a decision. And I know that sounded like really ridiculous, but basically your decision to not make a change is also a decision. So as you think about, should I turn left or should I turn right? Do I get that promotion or do I go? Do I stay and make this work or do I tell them that I'm really unhappy and what do I do? Do I quote unquote abandon everything I've done up to this point and make this huge career change because something is pulling me towards it? Whatever you decide to do, one is a choice. And so recognizing that you do have a choice, even if you choose not to do anything different. And then there's no wrong choice. Like just try it, learn something. I always tell the story of when I made a choice to move into a compensation role. It was horrible. It was so bad. I almost got fired, but that taught me a lot about myself. And honestly, when I then had to manage a compensation person, I did bring that experience with me and probably
Mm.
made me hopefully more empathetic or more supportive or whatever. It also helped me realize I didn't want to do that kind of work and I wanted to do more career development work instead. So recognizing you have a choice no matter what, even if that means staying or not making a change. And then if you do decide to do something different, whether it works or not, it's still worth trying because it will get you on that path to something else, whatever you learn from that situation.
Hi, Shine at Work team. It's Danielle Doolin, communications professional and career and finance writer. Congratulations on 100 episodes. What an amazing accomplishment. That's so exciting. I'm so proud of all the work that you're doing. If I had to give a piece of advice that I would tell my former self when I was making my career change, it would be simply put to trust your gut. Because when you're going through a career change or even considering going through a career change, you're going to hear a lot of opinions and a lot of advice from a lot of different people and places. You're going to Google a lot of things on the internet and you're going to read a lot. But at the end of the day, you need to listen to your own intuition and trust your gut. You'll know when it's the right time to make a move or when it's time to make a change. There's going to be a lot of external noise, but what you need to do is just gather the information that you need, sit with it, digest it, try to make sense of it, and make the most informed decision with the information that you have available at the time. And 9 times out of 10, your gut instinct is usually right. So tune out the noise and do what's best for you, because at the end of the day, what's important is that you can lay your head on your pillow and be happy and content with the choices that you're making, and knowing that it is the right one for you at the current moment and where you are in your career. So trust your gut. Again, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. And I can't wait to see what the next 100 episodes are going to be.
So before we move on to the second question, what do you wish you knew, Mr. Dankar, in your career that you know now?
Yeah, I mean, thinking through this, it may sound a little cliche, but it's just so important that I wanted to mention it is just making sure that every opportunity that you can embrace the idea of having or getting a mentor in your life, whether that's, some manager that you really like or somebody that you cross functionally work with, someone that's maybe just a level or two above you, or could be 3 levels. But whatever it is, create that relationship, recognize that it's someone that you feel comfortable communicating with, just establish that relationship to be a sounding board in your career. Just having someone to talk through your decisions of, we're talking about making a decision without making a decision, whatever you said. um, just having those people in your life that can be a sounding board through some of the big decisions that you make throughout your career is monumental, and is super helpful just to, again, not feel like you're making a decision in a vacuum or you're alone. You can lean it. They don't even need to be in your specific area of practice. I mean, that can be helpful too, but I think for me, just it took me a little while to get to that point. And again, that goes back to feeling the need to sort of pretend or having imposter syndrome and not being able to be vulnerable. But once you can really connect with someone and then nurture that relationship, keep it with you as you move to different companies, just always back and checking in with that person is just invaluable as you move through your career, and will be certainly not something that you regret in any way, and it pays off tenfold.
No, I agree. I mean, I literally, as you were describing who that person could be, my own person came into my head. Like I knew exactly who you were talking about. I've known her for like 13 years at this point. We've worked together. We haven't worked together. She was my boss. She wasn't my boss. She was my partner. Now she's a friend. And she's absolutely the person I go to when I am trying to figure out, is this the right move? What do you think? Am I just having a bad day? I think this is a good thing. Am I blinded by something? And I think the benefit of having someone like that is, yes, your partner, of course, in your life or roommate or whoever that is, like personally, should be someone you're talking to. But they also have an agenda is too strong, but they've got stake in it, right? They love you.
Bias.
They're yeah, exactly,
Yep.
exactly. So they may not see it in a way that a mentor who knows you well enough, but it can be a little more objective, can help share a different perspective.
Yep, absolutely. So, like again, for me personally, like took me a few years before that presented itself, or I understood the importance of it. But now having someone that you can sort of lean into for any sort of thing that you're contemplating or weighing different options, it's just super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's interesting because this is why we're so good together. Mine is similar but different.
Mm.
So for me, I wish I had understood the importance of my peers. And I mean like internal peers. So people that are on the roller coaster with you, who actually are your support system, can help you learn, can bounce ideas off of you. I think at times I saw them more as competitors, or I was trying to be as good as, or they got promoted before I did and that felt sucky. And so,
Mhm.
but instead, like when I look back, those are some of my ride or die HR people. They're the ones that kind of helped us get through the most turbulent times together, or we had the biggest celebrations with. And so, really, whether those peers are on your direct team or maybe it's a more cross-functional team, because I know some teams are small and you may only be a team of one or two, but who are those people that are on the roller coaster with you in your different roles? Because they're the ones that might really help you survive and thrive during those moments.
Question I've chosen is, what do you wish you knew in your career that you know now? For me, it's that nobody knows as much as you think that they know. Everybody is operating on a lot of knowledge that they already have, a lot of knowledge that they're assuming they have, and then a whole lot of looking things up, making it up as they go along, asking other people, asking experts, reading up on it, or even just making things up if the solution doesn't happen to be something that's already well known. Um, Everybody thinks that they are an imposter because they don't know as much as they think everyone else does. I certainly felt that way through a whole lot of my career, and I fight that a lot as well in my career now. Is thinking that I don't know as much as my peers, thinking that people in positions above me somehow have a lot more knowledge than I do, that other people come to solutions more quickly, that they don't have to look things up as much. And that's simply not true. People are always trying to find the answers in whatever way they can to make their jobs easier, to make other people's jobs easier, and to advance their career. So if you are feeling like an imposter, realize that so many other people are feeling like an imposter as well. Thanks very much.
Having conversations with people why they want to switch roles and moving into new careers, a very common answer to the question is, what would be the toughest thing about moving? And it's usually my team and the people that I work with. And I think that that's sort of a north star that you want to get to, is like really having those relationships with your peers. And like to your point, like earlier on in my career, it looked like the competition, and you're a little bit more reserved. But the more that you can embrace that idea, the more successful you'll probably be in your role, and it'll also again be something that pays off tenfold for you, in my experience, as you move throughout your career.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just kind of touched upon it a little bit when I think of some of our clients and we talk about like who's in your network, to either talk about, I think I'm changing, I think about going for this job, what do you think? Or, it looks like you moved on to this company. Do you like it? To your point, that is networking, but those are the warm networking opportunities where you
Hmm.
already have those relationships. And often we tell clients, start there. Who are the
Yep.
people you used to work with that now are on to different companies that you could tap on the shoulder first?
Yep. And also, like, I know you and I both have very similar experiences of those are the people when you're going something new at your new job that like you might not know an answer to, or you tap into that networking. You're like, is anybody dealing with this, or have they dealt with this? Like, I forget what it was, but when we were just together last, like you had a thread of old
Yes.
coworkers that you were like, hey, I need this. Does anybody know this? And like immediately you got a response. And
Yeah.
it can just be a really good sort of knowledge base or informational network too that you can tap into and look like the smartest person in the room
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to your imposter syndrome piece. Like,
Hmm.
that's who I go to when I don't have the answer. We've shared candidates, we've shared conversations around systems, like what ATS, which is a recruiting platform we're using these days. Has anyone worked with this partner? I've got this legal issue. Does anyone have a lawyer in some such or other country? To just laughing about, you will not believe what someone just did in my company. So that
Yep.
thread has been going on for many, many years. And it's all of those stories and all of that advice and all of that resource sharing as well.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just another little bit of a safety net, like as you navigate the craziness and the idea of imposter syndrome and all the things, all
Yeah.
the fun things that come into your career journey of like having an outlet and having another group of people that you can connect with and really explore things with.
Well, and that's what I love about the advice from our past guests is that it really all does build on each other. And
Hmm.
as you see some of the things come through throughout this episode, or as we talk about some of the things in more detail, you will see things like how, knowing what your values are will then help remind you that your career doesn't define you. Or,
Hmm.
they really do all sort of interconnect nicely. And they also interconnect with the second question that we asked folks, which is, what piece of advice would you tell your former self when you were making a career change
Hmm.
specifically?
Yep.
And some of those themes were around, when you think about imposter syndrome, someone said, go for the big opportunity. Don't sell your self short. Often people think, oh, I won't be able to get that. So they don't even apply for it. Like, go for it. You never know. Thinking about what your non-negotiables are. So if you understand what your values are, what are those non-negotiables and how are you going to keep yourself honest when you look at that? Networking. We just talked about that a lot, like making sure you're keeping that warm, even if you're not thinking about a career change. Trusting your gut and getting a lot of feedback and ideas, but then it's your decision. So make the decision that's right for you. The other thing that came through, which was sort of interesting, was around remembering, and I actually just had this conversation with someone, remembering that yes, you are thankful for the opportunities that you've had in an organization, but don't hold on to those longer than you need to. So you just
Mm.
mentioned, right? Like, it's hard to leave your team. Yes, it's hard to leave a team sometimes, but if it's right for you to make the move, make the move. The right people will stay in your life past working with them, and other people won't. And that's okay too.
No, I love that. And that's unfortunately the part of growth that hurts a little
Yeah.
bit or is like the friction point or that will give you pause. But it's kind of a unnecessary evil of evolving and growing into ultimately what you want to be.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So the two in this category that kind of stood out to us is for you mentioned that being radically authentic in every interaction, which came from one of our guests, spoke to you. Why did that connect with you?
Yeah, I think just the idea of being authentic, being genuine is such a valuable thing as you sort of embrace the idea of making a career change. First off, thinking through like what really resonates with you from like a really authentic place, going through the process of meditating on that and coming up with the ideas of where do I want to land as far as like company mission values types of products, just coming from an authentic place is so important in that very first step of the process. And then is you carry it with you through making that career change. It comes through in your interviews, it comes through in your interactions at work. Like the more that you can be authentic and come from a genuine place, it may be tough in some circumstances, but it's always going to land you in the place that you're supposed to be in. So I just love that idea at being a recruiter. Like it I can tell when someone's being really authentic with me and coming from a place of um, genuineness. And it's just like, this is somebody that like everybody's got to talk to because they're really excited about what we're doing. But if you're not authentic with yourself in the beginning of that process, it's going to hinder you along the way. So I really like that.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you've talked a lot about on this podcast and with our clients around the importance of knowing why you want to talk to that company, whether that's in their cover letter, whether that's in their interview, even just who to target to begin with, because that comes through in the conversations. And anyone can work anywhere, but you as a recruiter will often lean towards that energy of, oh, they really want to be here only if it's authentic and they have to authentically want to be there for a reason. So there's a personal story. They believe in the mission for some reason besides the obvious. And that really gets people excited to want to work with that person.
You're not only filling a position for somebody that can do the job, but like for every person that you're hiring. And this varies from size of company, but from my experiences, like each hire is you're adding to the culture and you're either giving to it or you're taking away from that. And the goal is you're hopefully giving to it. So that's always something that I'm hypersensitive to when I'm internal and recruiting for a company. And like the more that you can come from that authentic place, it's going to be contagious throughout that process for you.
Yeah. And I forget where I heard this, but I just heard someone talking about if you're not authentic in the interview, how exhausting it will be when you then have to show up as that inauthentic person again. Like if you
Hmm.
get the job, every day, are you going to be the version you shared during the interview? Are you going to surprise them with your authentic self? And what if it doesn't go well? Like it doesn't set you up for success if you're not authentic during the process.
Yeah, it certainly makes imposter syndrome even
Yeah.
worse too.
Yeah.
That is probably not part of the imposter syndrome that
Yeah.
you want to embrace. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is really exhausting because then it's just like, hey, I got to do this for the next 2 to 3 years. So again, like if you can come from that place and have it be your guiding light, you'll probably land in a place where that will flourish and it'll be something that you can just lean into as opposed to forcing.
One piece of advice that I would tell my former self, who was making a career change from a 911 dispatcher to an HR professional, would be to lose the thought that you do not have enough experience. Now, why do I say that? Because during my journey, I was followed around by this thought like a shadow. It followed me into networking calls, into messages on LinkedIn to people, and interviews. And what it really did was make me play small and think small about myself. And when you're not able to really see the true value and skills and experience that you do have, it is very hard for others to see that as well. So I would give myself the advice to lose that thought. And how I would do that is by really writing down everything that I had accomplished and that had made an impact in other positions and why. And really remembering that those things mattered, my experience matters, and I bring a unique skill set to this new career that I'm trying to go into. And I hope that that would help somebody else not play small and think small about themselves because we don't have to do that. We are worthy, our skills are worthy, and our experience matters.
And the piece of advice that really resonated for me, especially with my background, is that your past experience is not wasted time, that you will absolutely be using those transferable skills all the time. So, as someone has started in theater as a stage manager and then worked in LA for a talent agency, on paper, that does not translate to anything except those jobs. But in reality, I was having to influence people. I was having to navigate different kinds of personalities. I was having to be really organized and manage my time well and negotiate and rally everybody together for a shared cause and, understand different emotions that were coming when things changed. That is all shit that I use every single day in any one of the jobs that I have now.
Yep.
And so, yeah, on paper, maybe that's not obvious, but I truly cherish all of those experiences. And I know that sounds cheesy, but like, I know that's helped make me a better person, then a more empathetic and understanding HR person, a more put together manager and executive. So like, I know that all has gotten me to this moment, even if at the time it didn't make any sense.
No, I love that one too. And I think, one of the biggest friction points for people making a career change is not being able to put any value to those and just being like, well, I want to move into marketing, but I don't have X, Y, and Z, instead of thinking like, I have QRS and that plays into these, and really like thinking just that whole exercise that you just played out of really, it's what we work with clients with a lot of like, okay, what do you have? What have you done? Like, what's the bridge there? Like, we'll start connecting some of the dots. And it's there, I promise you. I've had very similar experiences. I started out in sales before I moved into recruiting, but like, relationship management, communication, all of those foundational things that I learned in that role. There was a bridge into recruiting that I just had to find the right way to share that narrative, and it made that transition much easier for me.
Well, and it kind of goes back to authenticity, right? Like, let's say I stayed in LA, that was not authentically me. And so, sure, maybe I stayed in the job that I was quote unquote supposed to be in at that point, or where I was sort of had landed, but it wasn't going to make anybody happy. So,
Mhm.
acknowledging that and taking that to the next level and saying, okay, so what do I do instead? And then how do I bring those skills with me was the only way for me to move forward in that moment.
And I think it goes back and speaks to sort of what we were saying about the idea of not being afraid to share what you don't know and coming from
Yeah.
an authentic place, because once you can connect those dots and then figure out what you don't have, then you can start to build them. You can come from a place of self-awareness of like, okay, I don't have these things, like how will I bridge those gaps? And that
Yeah.
those are things that will also, you start thinking that way, it will come through in interviews as well, in the conversations that you're having
Yeah.
for these roles. And it'll play to your advantage.
Yeah, and it kind of speaks to what I was going to sort of give as the advice of, what I would tell my former self when making a career change was tell people. The fact that when I left LA, we had moved to Boston, I was just doing temp jobs as like an office manager, office administrator kind of job. And I was at this mortgage company and they were lovely people. It was really small. And they were asking me, as the temp, like, what are you doing? Or what are you trying to do? Or whatever. What do you hope to do? And I said, well, I'm kind of in this like transition period. I think I want to move into HR, but I don't really know anything about it. But what I do know feels right. What do you know about HR? Because they had a CFO who had worked at a lot of companies and he kind of gave me his 2 cents. And he said, well, we don't really have that here. So if you wanted to kind of like dabble in it, I'd be supportive of that because you're only helping us and that way you can learn. But if I had
Mm,
said, oh, I don't know, I'm just kind of doing a temp job. I'm just going to go get lunch now. Like, who knows what would have happened? You have to speak up for yourself. You have to share what you're thinking, even if it's, I don't know, this is starting to be something I'm thinking about, but I'm still figuring it out myself. But just putting it out there in the universe, not in a woo woo way, but in a talk to people because they might help you or help you think about it more or just give you a different perspective or literally help you, make that change.
yeah, absolutely. I love that.
What would be the advice you gave yourself when you were making career changes?
Take a breath, be patient,
Mm,
understand it's more of a journey. Like, you're not going to get from
mm,
A to Z in a 6 month period.
yeah,
And I see that it, once you've decided to make this shift, and you sort of have a North Star, you got to figure out what the baby steps are to that and celebrate those little wins along the way, because it can be a very daunting task, and it can be self-defeating to think like, okay, I want to be this, but there's no way, like, I don't have the background for it. Like, why would anybody hire from me? Like, I don't have these transitional skills, blah, blah, blah. It's take the small bites, like start off with like, okay, what would be the first step into this? Create like a 3-year plan, create a 5-year plan, but just understand that it's more of that marathon, not a sprint. It's a journey. Do it in small ways and celebrate those small wins that you have along the way, and it'll make it a much easier, more successful journey,
yeah,
for
yeah.
lack of a better way of saying that.
Well, And I love how this just, like I said, it all builds on each other, right? There's no magic bullet. There's no 1 + 1 always equals 2. I can't wave a magic wand and make this all like happen because it's all of this stuff built together. And I
Hmm.
think that's hopefully, especially as you've joined the podcast and we've been doing this together, hopefully that's what people see is like this builds on each other. All of these things are important. There's a lot of puzzle pieces that you're putting together. Sometimes a piece is bigger than another piece, depending on your situation, but like it's all coming together and it's a lot to navigate. And that's why people reach out to us to work with them and support them. That's why we do this podcast. That's why our roles exist. Cause like it's hard, but it's not rocket science, but you just need someone to help you see what that puzzle is going to look like and then help you put the pieces together.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, especially working with clients, is like a lot of this can just be a black hole. You're doing it in a vacuum. You're not seeing. It seems so far away that you can't see the forest for the trees, and like, and it's really that's what I'm saying. Just like breaking it down of like, okay, inch by inch, like this is where I need to go. This is my next step. These are. It's not the next 100 steps. This is the next step, and just play that game, and it will ultimately be a much more rewarding experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that has been what all of these 100 episodes have been for those of you who have actually listened to all 100. And I know there are people out there. Bless you. Like, thank you so much for doing that. But in all seriousness, whether you've listened to 4, 20 or 100, we create these episodes because we just want to help. So as we think about future seasons, future topics, maybe like little mini episodes here and there, let us know what's top of mind for you. Where are you stuck? Where are you feeling like you aren't sure, what all those pieces are and what all those little bridges are and those little moments that you need to take? Let us know so that as we think about the future season, we're building content that is helpful for you. My friend, I cannot thank you enough for doing this with me. It is such a joy and so special that we get to do this together. So thank you for joining me on whatever number of episodes we have done together.
I agree. I love you. Thank you for inviting me. Here's to another 100 episodes.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah. I feel like the next milestone is 250, not 200. So we'll celebrate at 250.
Okay. On
Because
board.
I said so. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know what you want to hear in future episodes, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Shine at Work podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video versions of our episodes. To learn more about how you can work with Dan and I to make your next big career move, go to our website, shineatwork.net, or follow us on Instagram at shine_at_work. See you at the next episode.